After the Lions defense dominated the Las Vegas Raiders and Jimmy Garoppolo on Monday Night Football, they've now had an extra week to prepare for the Los Angeles Chargers and for Justin Herbert. The real thing that they've got to do in this game, though, is they've got to bring the heat and get Herbert uncomfortable. The question is, will they do it? We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned. It started with an owner who had a last name fans despised, hiring a coach that the experts thought was crazy,
but I got a plan, I swear to you,
who traded for a QB that was said to be washed up. They said the Detroit Lions would never amount to anything, that it would always be the same old Lions. But this team, our team, has a new identity, defined and expressed by the crazy head coach.
Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes, I will beat your ass.
Led by the QB that nobody thought was good. Motor City Mania is in full swing and ready to start. So join the show and be prepared for kneecap biting, because Motor City Mania starts right now. Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM, Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and we're diving in right now. As always, to those that are tuning back into the show, I just want to say welcome back. Thank you all for your view, your support, your patronage. Thank you all for everything that y'all do. You guys are awesome. And to the newcomers that are coming into the show, I just want to say thank you all for giving my show a shot. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content, and likewise, I hopefully gain your guys' subscription if you guys like the content and if I've deserved it. And with that being said, to everybody, I just want to say God bless, and let's dive into the show. So here's the thing, folks. When we take a look at this Lions defense is one that's definitely improved. I have been willing to admit that. This Lions defense has shown a lot more growth this year than what it has done over the last couple of seasons under the tutelage of Aaron Glenn. Now, I'm going to say this right now. I have been very critical of Aaron Glenn. I'm not ashamed of it. I am not going to retract my statement that I made a long time ago. Again, I have said it from the very beginning. What I wanted to see out of Aaron Glenn in this defense was consistency. And the one thing that Aaron Glenn has still not been able to show is a long-term set of consistency. Again, it's a couple of games, then we have a bad game. Well, here's the thing. That bad game that I'm referring to is against the Ravens. That was a couple of weeks ago. Now we're getting set for against the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, here's what I got to say about this. The Ravens offense is a completely different dynamic. It's a completely different setup in terms of how they get their offense running versus what the Chargers do. The Ravens offense is primarily predicated around running the ball, doing read options, getting the ball into Lamar Jackson's hands so that way he can do whatever fun stuff he's going to do with it and spread the ball around that way. The Chargers offense is a completely different kind of animal, a completely different machine, because what that offense is based and predicated upon is Justin Herbert just slinging the ball all over, kind of like it's backyard football, kind of schoolyard football. And that's kind of the difference between the two. But let's understand something and make no mistake here. Justin Herbert is just as good as Lamar Jackson in being able to get a lot of points, doing a lot of damage to defenses. It's just a different dynamic. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how I believe the Lions defense has one singular mission. Obviously, there's other things they got to do, but there's one mission that takes precedence above all else. They have got to stop Justin Herbert from exploding all over them, because if they don't, this is going to be a very long day. It's going to be a high-scoring affair, and while I have no doubt my Lions offense can definitely go toe-to-toe with the Chargers offense, I would much rather be in a much more comfortable position to win this game rather than it coming down to the last couple of minutes and hoping my defense will be able to stop Justin Herbert. So that's where we're at with today's episode. Now we're going to dive into the statistical analysis, the logical reasoning. You guys all know the stats. You guys all know my how do I put this? My script by now. So without further ado, let's get into it. So when you take a look at the Lions as far as their statistical rankings and their stats and everything else, this is what you get. Now, for me, the stats are a little bit interesting here, and you're going to see what I mean as I start to put them up on the screen, if I can get them up there. If not, I do apologize, but here we go. When you take a look at the Lions in terms of points given up, they're tied 13th. In terms of yards, they're ranked 4th. In terms of yards per play, they're tied 11th. First downs given up, they're ranked 5th. Third down conversion percentage, they're ranked 2nd. Red zone percentage, they're ranked ranked 27th. Passing yards, they're ranked 10th. Rush yards, they're ranked 2nd. Passing first downs, ranked 15th. Rushing first downs, they're ranked 3rd. Rushing average, they're tied for 5th. Penalties, they're ranked 3rd. Scoring drive percentage, they're ranked 9th. Turnover percentage is 18th. Sacks, they're tied for 17th. And pressure percentage, they're ranked 9th. Again, it's a lot of stats. It's a lot of data. Let me break it down for you. Here's what I got here. When you take a look at those stats, there's obviously a lot of numbers that are in or around the top 10 mark. But my question is this: how solid are these stats after a bye week? Because you have to be realistic here. As much as I love my Lions and I'm always willing to, prop them up, make them look good, we have to be honest with ourselves. The defense has not gone up against anybody in a whole week, so there's a whole week of potential statistical production that is missing here that I believe is propping up some of these stats to look better than what they are. So my real question is, are some of these stats soft versus some of them are a little bit more legit? Now, for me, the rushing stats are legit because the rushing defense has been absolutely stellar, has been standout all year. But there's some other stats where it's like, okay, I'm kind of curious as to what we're potentially dealing with here. I'm kind of worried if whether or not this is because of, okay, we've had a bye week, or if it's actually a true reflection of what the Lions have to offer. But I will say this right now. There is one stat out of this whole, kind of conglomeration of stats that's really, really concerning to me. And that's the red zone percentage. Because we have given up in terms of when teams get into the red zone against us, we have allowed opposing offenses to score on a 65.4% of the time. That's why it's ranked 27th. You guys are going to understand here in a moment why that particular stat is very, very worrisome for me. It's very concerning. So keep that stat in mind as we now take a look at the Los Angeles Chargers offensive stats really quickly, kind of giving you guys a contrast between the two. When you take a look at the Chargers in terms of their statistical stats and rankings, this is what you get. In terms of points that they've scored, they're ranked 10th. In terms of yards, they're ranked 18th. In terms of first downs overall, they're ranked 21st. Third down conversion, they're ranked 12th. Red zone percentage, they're ranked 2nd. In terms of passing yards, ranked 14th. Rushing yards, ranked 22nd. Passing first downs, they're ranked 14th. Rushing first downs, they're ranked 25th. Rushing average, they're tied for 20th. Penalties, they're ranked 4th. Scoring drive percentage, they're ranked 9th. Turnover percentage, they're ranked 2nd. And sacks given up, they're ranked 19th. Now, remember how I said keep that statistical number of 65.4% for the Lions' red zone percentage as far as how many times they allow opposing offenses to score once they get into the end zone. Or in the red zone, pardon me. Remember how I said that? If you take a look at the contrast, the Lions give up 65.4% of the time to offenses when they get into the red zone. The Chargers offense scores almost 70% of the time when they get into the red zone. They're the second best red zone offense in the NFL. That is a huge problem for me because pretty much it means this. If the freaking Chargers get into the red zone against us, they're going to most likely score because they have the second best red zone offense and we have one of the worst red zone defenses. That is a huge problem for me. That is a huge concern for me. And it's even further reflected when you take a look at this. The Chargers offense, it does not turn the ball over very often. It only turns the ball over on almost 7% of its drives. Again, second best in the NFL. And their scoring drive percentage, almost 40% of the time they're scoring on their drives. That is top 10. This is an offense that even though it's had a couple of problems over the year, it still knows how to score points and it's very efficient and effective once it gets into the red zone. There's no denying this. And the opposite is true for the Lions defense. Once an opposing offense gets into the red zone, we are almost impossible in trying to stop them from scoring. So for me, it's like, listen, the Lions have got to stop the Chargers offense before it gets to the red zone. Otherwise, we're in some serious trouble. Now, let's take a look at some other statistics. Statisticals is not a word. Let's take a look at some more stuff here. Let's consider this. If you take a look at the Chargers offense, taking a look at all those stats, yeah, it kind of looks a little bit bad for the Lions defense. But we have to understand something here. This is why I said the Lions have one mission when it comes to the Chargers offense in stopping Justin Herbert. Because the reason why is the Chargers offense is mostly a one offensive weapon trick pony. Case in point, when you take a look at Justin Herbert's statistical production, he has 189 completions to 282 attempts. That's for about 67%, which is ranked 12th in the NFL. He's got just a little over 2,000 yards. Again, ranked 12th. He has 13 touchdowns. That's that's ranked top 10. He's got 4 interceptions, 97.3 passer rating, again, top 10, and a 66.6 QBR rating, which is ranked top 5. So when you take a look at Justin Herbert, he is definitely a top 10 quarterback. There's no debating on that one. But when you think about it from that perspective, let's compare it to the Chargers' rushing attack. You take a look at the 2 top runners for the Chargers. Both of these guys are outside of the top 25. Again, when you're talking about a rushing attack that has 2 primary running backs, you want it to be at or close to the top 25 as possible. The Chargers are in neither of those conditions. When you take a look at the 2 Chargers running backs, they've got Joshua Kelly and they've got Austin Eckler. Joshua Kelly is more of the running back, where Austin Eckler is more of the receiver back. So if you really want to kind of put in comparison for the Lions, Joshua Kelly's kind of like the David Montgomery, and Austin Eckler is more like the Jahmyr Gibbs. And when you take a look at the 2 statistics, you're going to see what I mean. When you take a look at Kelly, he's got 74 attempts for 323 yards, 4.5 almost an average for 2 rushing touchdowns. Eckler, on the other hand, pretty much the same amount of attempts, but only 265 rushing yards for almost 3.5 an average and 3 rushing touchdowns. Now, when you think about this, if you go on ESPN, those 2 running backs have only got 4 big plays between the 2 of them, which is rushes of 20 yards or more. So these guys are not particularly explosive. And if you take a look at Austin Eckler, he's not exactly efficient when it comes to running the ball. But that's not where Austin Eckler gets a lot of his production. He is more of a receiving back. So the Chargers offense kind of splits the duties between the 2 of them. Kelly's more the runner, Eckler's more the receiver. Now, moving further into this whole deep dive here, we also need to take a look at the Chargers in their receiving game. Pardon me, my paper's giving me a little bit of fits here. When you take a look at the Chargers and the receiving options, again, the Chargers have weapons, but let's understand something here. The Chargers' primary receiving threat is and has been for several years wide receiver Keenan Allen. Again, it's pretty much a one-weapon offense in that sense. When you take a look at it, Keenan Allen is the only Chargers receiver that is in the top 50 for receiving yards. That's kind of a little bit interesting because it's like, okay, this is your one primary weapon. The rest of them kind of get muddled in a little bit here and there. When you take a look at Keenan Allen's receiving stats, he has 62 receptions, top 10, 720 yards, top 10, 11.6 an average a catch, 4 touchdowns, top 15, 13 big receptions, which is top 10 as well. And again, that's 20 yards or more per receiving play. So what you're talking about here is one guy who is the primary receiving threat. And again, like I said, the Chargers have other weapons. They have Austin Eckler, who is kind of like a receiving satellite back. They also have Gerald Everett. But the real problem for the Chargers is that they're dealing with a lot of injuries at their wide receiver core. Mike Williams is done for the year. He's on IR. He's not coming back. Another guy that they've lost is Joshua Palmer. He's on IR, but he can return. The problem is he's not likely to return this week. So again, when you take a look at the Chargers offense, like I said, the primary thing that the Lions defense has got to do is they've got to stop Justin Herbert. And the best way to stop Justin Herbert is to make sure Keenan Allen doesn't run ramp shot all over them. The other way to get after him is to apply pressure, which is something the Lions have had a little bit of problem being consistent with this year. There was a 2-3 week period where we were getting after quarterbacks like crazy. However, since then, it's kind of cooled down a little bit. Obviously, we got 5 sacks against the Raiders, but let's be fair, the Raiders are not that good. So again, I'm not trying to prop us up too much, but at the same time, I'm trying to be fair here. Now, let's continue on this gravy train here. So when you consider the fact that the Lions are going up against an offense that is currently powered by Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert, the running game is subpar as well. So again, the biggest thing the Lions have to do, stop Justin Herbert, which means you have to stop Keenan Allen. Those are your 2 primary objectives, because if you stop Justin Herbert, you have to stop Keenan Allen. However, There's one thing I'm going to say here right now. While I know there are some people that think the Lions should have a really good chance to beat the Chargers, there's a reason why I said I do not want to get into a scoring bout between the Chargers and the Lions. Because let's take a look at how the Chargers have done this year. Yes, they're 4-4, they're 500, but we have to keep something in perspective here. Of the 4 losses that the Chargers have had, only 3 of them let me rephrase this. 3 out of the 4 of them have been by 3 points or less. Take a look at it. They lost to the Dolphins, I believe 36-34. They lost to the Cowboys, a really great defense, 20-17. And the other team that they lost to, I believe, I can't remember who it was. I think it was the Chiefs. They lost by big time. But realistically, when they lose, it's only by a couple of points. So for me, it's like, listen, they're not losing by a whole lot. And when you take a look at when they lost those 4 games, they're not losing for the same reason every single time. It's usually a different reason, meaning it's not one thing continually failing. Meaning that we absolutely cannot take the Chargers lightly. This is a team that knows how to score very quickly, very efficiently, very effectively, which means our defense has got to be on top of its game and our offense has got to go out and score points whenever we get the ball. And here's the one thing I'm going to say in opposite to the Chargers and their losses. Losses, pardon me. When you take a look at their wins, on the other hand, it's almost definitely always the case that Justin Herbert's the reason why they win their games. In 3 out of their 4 wins, Justin Herbert is the primary reason why they won the game because of how many times he scores, either running the ball or throwing the ball. There's only one time where the Chargers have won and Justin Herbert almost had very little to do with it, and that was this last game against the Jets. That was more because of the defense stepping up and also special teams getting points. But the point of the matter is this, to kind of tie this whole thing back to what I was originally saying. The Lions defense has got to stop Justin Herbert, and the best way to do that is stop Keenan Allen. If you can keep those 2 guys in check, you're going to have a really good chance to win. Because again, if you let those 2 get loose, it's going to be a bad day at the office for the Lions defense. There is no doubt about this in my mind. Let me check my last bit of notes here, see if there's anything more I've got before we potentially end this episode. Okay, here's the last thing I want to talk about here. Again, keeping the attention on Herbert, so to speak. When you take a look at Justin Herbert, in terms of his splits, when he wins and when he loses, it's absolutely it's incredible how much difference there is between his performance. When you take a look when Justin Herbert wins, he has a statistical line of 100 completions to 141 attempts for 1,006 yards at 71% almost completion rate, 7 touchdowns to 1 interception with a near 105 passer rating. When you take a look at his losses, 89 completions for 141 attempts, so the exact same amount, 1,020 yards, almost the same amount, but 63.1 completion rate, 6 touchdowns to 3 interceptions with a 90.1 passer rating. It's a huge difference. Pretty much when the Chargers lose, Justin Herbert's not on top of his game. And when the Chargers win, Justin Herbert is on top of his game. That's why I'm saying the Lions defense has got to stop Justin Herbert. They've got to bring the heat. They've got to get him uncomfortable. They've got to shut down Keenan Allen. So again, like I've been saying this whole entire episode, this means one simple thing. The Lions defense has got to stop. It has got to slow down Herbert to win. And I expect a very close game regardless, because for me, every single game that the Chargers have lost, except for that one game against the Chiefs, it has been very close. So if the Lions do not want to get into a scoring shootout, the defense has got to step up and stop Justin Herbert. Otherwise, we are going to be in a shootout. And as much as I love an offensive shootout as anybody else, I do not want to potentially do that against the Chargers on their home field. I would much rather have an easier day where it's like, hey, their offense can't get anything going and our offense scores all the points in the world. But again, we will see what happens on Sunday at 4:25 p.m. But until that time, I've come to the end of my episode, so I want to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If by chance you like what you saw, by all means, I want to highly encourage y'all please to do one of these 3 things. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you've subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you've not had a chance to do so, first and foremost, I want to highly encourage y'all, please make sure you subscribe. And second of all, if you haven't had a chance to do so after you hit that subscribe button, please make sure you hit that bell notification icon that's at the bottom of the page as well, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. Again, Subscription numbers are always going up, but we want to make sure we turn that bell notification icon on so that way you guys never miss any content as soon as I push it out. I also encourage y'all, please share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with anybody and everybody that you can. So that way we can get more people coming into the show. We can have better discussions about football in general, but also about the Detroit Lions. And with that having been said, I just want to say again, thank you all for tuning into the show. Thank you all for what you guys do. Thank you all for your comments. Hopefully I gained your subscription if I hadn't done so already. And with that, I just want to say, God bless, and until the next time we meet, I'll see y'all in the next episode.